morning. It's Ginny and Tim. I was just checking the sound
Yep.
at DS Tech, and we're going to talk about cyber insurance readiness. Okay, so we'll start off by telling you why you need cyber insurance and what it's for,
Yep.
because some people don't know that. And then we'll talk about what you need to do. And at the end, if you want, ask for a checklist.
Yeah,
I'll get you one. I'll get you a checklist of stuff that you need to do to comply so that you can get cyber insurance.
Yep. Unfortunately, it's changed a little bit. We'll get into that.
It changes all the time.
You need to have a better driving record now, basically, is the best way to put it. So
yeah.
So what is cyber insurance? So, cyber insurance is becoming essential for businesses because it will help you with covering from losses. If you ever did have, say, a cyber attack, a data breach, ransomware, any of those huge, scary terms you see in the news all the time, cyber insurance will basically help you to recover all that stuff, help your data. Some of the cyber insurance firms actually will have IT teams and a forensics team that they will hire to help you even restore, that will work alongside your MSP if you have, say, DS Tech as your business partner, or they'll work with you on how to make that process and restore properly and things like that too. The issue that happened is that insurers are now tightening their requirements. It used to be everyone could get a cyber insurance policy or get a cyber added onto their policy very easily. It's like, yeah, add that line item, pay us an extra amount of money, good to go, call it good. And they didn't do any due diligence or care about what people had in terms of their IT security posture. They just said, well, anyone gets a policy, you get a policy, you get a policy, you're giving us money, you get a policy. Well, what started happening is these insurance carriers started losing a ton of money because, as you see in the news, every day there's another ransomware event, there's some sort of thing. As things get more connected, it's just the way the world's going. And they got tired of having to do all these payouts, and they were losing actually a ton more money than they were getting. So at some point, they were like, maybe we should make sure that our drivers have a safe driving record before we insure them. That's what regular, auto insurance, the comparison I do. So with IT, they're kind of doing the same thing. They're like, do you have a good IT driving record? Do you have certain security in place that will prevent some of these attacks? And they're starting to require more and more before they'll actually insure you is what's happening. So why readiness matters? Yeah, they're tightening the requirements. Businesses can be denied coverage, or you're just going to have to pay a higher premium. Your cyber insurance could literally double, or you can implement MFA and it goes back down again. Right. So what's going to cost you more time to implement? Well, you should probably just implement the MFA, save the money, and now you're more secure anyway. That would be my advice there.
By the way, that's one of the requirements.
Multi-factor. Yeah, that's the first one. That's definitely is a no-brainer now. If you don't have that set up, try to.
We say it almost every episode.
Yeah. Right? And some claims can even get denied if controls aren't in place. So that's the biggest thing I'll even lead with too, is if you lied on your form and you said, yep, we have MFA set up on all of our accounts. And then all of a sudden,
the president doesn't have it.
Yep, the president doesn't have it, and you guys get ransomware, and they do the research, and like, well, it came through the account that wasn't secured by MFA. You said you had it, you lied, so they're going to deny your coverage. It'd be like if you had life insurance and you didn't disclose you had a disease, like they're not going to just pay you out because you lied to them. So it's kind of a thing. So these are increasingly becoming required before issuing renewal policies. So I'll go through some of the common terms and kind of explain what they are and if you want to go into detail, reach out. We can definitely work with you on that and check your environment, see where you're at, and get you caught up to speed.
Sometimes the forms that they give you can be confusing.
And they're wordy, and they use technical terms, and they're just, exactly.
Reach out. We can help you with that for sure.
So some of the common requirements that are being increasingly required is the multi-factor authentication. We talked about that. That's where when you log into your email or your whatever portal you're logging into, you usually supply a username or an email and a password. Now you're going to have a secondary layer of defense where you might have a rotating code on your phone. It might be a text message. It could be a push button. There'll be some sort of secondary factor. That's what they call multi-factor to get in before you log in. And that just prevents it when they do the credentials are being stolen and transferred on the dark web and things like that. Attackers can't just log into your account because they'll need both your username account and your physical device, a phone with a thing to actually get in. So the way I kind of describe it, it's like having a key and a deadbolt to get into your house. Someone swipes your key, well, they're not going to have the secondary key to get in. It's going to stop them right there. That's the biggest thing you can do if you don't have multi-factor set up on your computers or your accounts. Do it everywhere. Even your personal accounts. Every time you says, well, would you like to set up multi-factor on your Google account? And you're like, I'll just do it later. And the next thing, you can't do it later because it's breached. So just take the time to set it up is my advice. Endpoint detection and response, EDR, which is just a fancy term for modern day antivirus. You also might see MDR, which is monitored antivirus. So some insurance may just want you to have the latest antivirus type EDR software on your computers. Some may actually want you to have EDR plus the SOC monitoring. It depends what business vertical you're in, what your industry has for requirements, because like say you're in banking and healthcare and certain things where you're dealing with customer data, they're going to have a lot more tighter and stringent controls on that versus like someone who's just doing like, I don't know, you're selling cupcakes. Kind of just depends what you're doing.
Well, even selling
data.
cupcakes.
Even that you might have customer data that you need to protect too, if you're storing it. So, but just
the
idea is that depending what you're doing, the requirements may vary a little bit here.
So you said SOC, and SOC is
Security Operations Center.
Right?
Yeah, MDR. SOC means you have an actual call center full of techs who are looking at alerts coming in 24/7, and if they see something coming in, you have a person that can review the logs and action and then block and take action if there was.
Security Operations Center.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. Yep. Another thing you're going to need to have is regular data backups, off-site and or immutable backups, especially for ransomware. And so that just means that it's separated from your network in a sense. So if someone gets onto your computer and your network and they start ransoming everything, your backup's not just a computer plugged in the corner. So now your backup got ransomware too. Mm-hmm. You want to have a separated backup that's immutable, where you might have a temporary storage that goes and then it goes off, and there's iterative versions of it. So that way, so if something ever happened, they can find the point in time to restore to, depending on when the attack first got in, because there's this thing called dwell time, where attackers unfortunately are trying to get smarter. So when they get onto your network, they're not going to just start, say if someone breaks into your house, they're not going to just start breaking windows and rummaging around all over the place. They might kind of sneakily kind of case it out, look at things, get an idea of it before they try to make their getaway. And that's what attackers are doing in your systems. They may get in your system and they're not going to just start downloading data and ransoming your files and doing all this right away. They're going to kind of just monitor it silently and see what's going on the day to day and try to figure out a good time to make their strike, or figure out, what files are important, things like that. So
that makes me think incubation period.
Yeah. So what happens is they could be on your computer for a month before they strike. You get the ransomware event, and when they finally do the forensics, they'll see, well, they were on your systems like 30 days ago. So now we need to restore a backup that's farther back, which could lead to more loss of work and things like that. So you just want to make sure that your backups are separated, immutable. If you reach out to DS Tech, we can definitely set you up with some good quality backups, things like that. Patch management programs. So this is starting to become required. It's not as much. They may just say, hey, are you patching regularly? It could be a very basic question like that. And it depends on your environment, what you're doing. And when we talk about patching, that's just upgrading your computer or the applications to be the latest version. So that way, if there's any security vulnerabilities, they're fixed, so that way they can't be used maliciously anymore. So you think about your browsers, Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, all that kind of stuff, constantly updating those. Well, then it also counts for your antivirus, and then your physical devices, like say firewalls and various physical devices that you may be protecting your environment. You want to do firmware updates on those, which are just the updates for the hardware itself, and just doing those regularly. It could be once a year, once a quarter, maybe you do it every month. It just depends on your business and the requirements that they're going to ask you to do. Security awareness training is something that you should do even if the insurance isn't requiring it. That's where you're doing training with your employees to make sure they're aware of the latest threats. Typically, people will do that when they first hire someone. Here's what you can do on the computers. Don't do this, X, Y, and Z, and that may be at the end of it. But I recommend at least once a year have a refresher with employees. And you can even take it a step further and do fake emails on purpose, like fake phishing emails, like send fake emails like, hey, check this to look at your latest pay stub. And it's a fake email to the employee to see if they click something without actually paying attention. And it's a training exercise. It's not meant to be a point figures that whoever clicked the links, I've clicked links too.
Yeah, me too.
And it's just a better, you do this over and over again, and we'll start creating the habit in them of like, I should double check this before I click it. Exactly. So incident response plan, or you may hear like of a business continuity plan or a disaster recovery plan, things like that. Typically the incident response is a very focused for a certain thing. So it might just be getting your computers up and running so you can service customers, or a disaster is more of an overarching, right? Disaster could cover fire, floods, snowstorms, power outages, where incident response is typically thought of with your IT department area. So if you got ransomware, what would you do? If all of a sudden, various things happen, how do you handle that? Who's the chain of command you talk to? And you need to have this plan printed out in physical form for owners and leaders. So that way, if something were to happen and you can't access your computers, everyone
They
still
can-
has a copy to follow, and there's contacts in there and things like that. So it doesn't necessarily just have to be, this is more focused on breaches, computer breaches. If the computer systems are down, like if your computers go down, do you go to your plan after 8 hours, after 36 hours, after 72? Different businesses, depending on what you're doing, maybe can handle being down longer than others. And so there's all these different things you take into consideration and you write that plan. It's like having a fire drill before a fire. If something, you don't hope the fire never happens, but you want everyone trained. So during the moment of panic, people have a course and they can follow something and it will resolve the issue faster. Privileged access management is becoming more, I guess it just depends where they're kind of how stringent they are and what role you're doing. But what that just means is the least privilege principle. So like admin account segregation. The idea is that your account that you log into your computer in the day should not be able to do administrative actions. You shouldn't be able to like install new software, edit your IP settings, do some of the stuff on your computer that, yes, it's handy for techs to do, or if it's your home computer, maybe you allow yourself to do all that stuff. But for business computers, you really need to separate that and have an administrator account used only when necessary. Because what would happen is someone gets in your regular daily driver account, they can't change all these settings and do all this other stuff because it's blocked, and they wouldn't have your administrator account to type in as needed. You've seen that where you maybe install a program and it pops up, and then you have to put in a username or password. It says, oh, you are trying to install new software, would you like to proceed? If it just says yes or no, that means that your account may be an administrator account and you're allowed to install new stuff. Typically, it will ask for a new username and new password. So for me, my name's Tim Soper, so my user account may be like Tim Admin instead of just my normal user account. And I'd have to type that in as needed. Definitely do that. And that's for the accounts are only given as much privilege as needed to do their job. If you have
right. So the marketing person or the procurement person, I have to call Tim. I need this installed on my computer.
Or you reach out. Yeah, exactly. If there's a new changes, certain things. And at first, if you're used to doing everything yourself, it can be hard to take away someone's privileges. People always get upset.
I remember.
And they always take it personally, but it's just like, even myself, I don't have access to a lot of various things, and I have to reach out to certain departments, and you keep that separation of duty on purpose to prevent, you don't want just to have like a master key where if they get into this account, they can go wild everywhere. It's to.
I've been here long enough that this has happened. It's like, I can't do that anymore. That's not my job.
And it's nothing personal. We know you're a good employee. It's just things are changing. We have to do this to be secure. Yep.
Absolutely.
Firewall and network security, I touched on that slightly with the firmware updates, but just you're going to need some sort of firewall system on your business. You're probably doing that already. That's a very common one, but they may require you to have one that's not end of life, because sometimes businesses may ride a firewall up. Oh, I had that firewall for like 10 years. It's still good, right? Well, at some point they stop giving the security updates, and you're kind of, I hate to say you're forced to get a new one, but that's just the way the industry is they want you to buy a new one so you can get the latest updates, because it's too costly for them to maintain every version of their product they've had forever. At least that's, and that's just where they're going with that. So actively
what I learned from my software programming son is that the hardware has programming too.
Yes.
So that's why you have to update it.
Yep. The actual hardware at the low level is programmed in a certain way. You hear the old, I don't know, what is it, like programmed in BASIC back in the day, or whatever, COBOL, or whatever these IBM computers are. There's just different programming languages, and with modern times, they use modern programming languages. So sometimes the older hardware isn't even, they're not supporting it anymore. That is definitely true for some one of the big reasons too as well. And then you want to have someone that's updating those regularly. VPN connections are also important, so you're not using like business data on McDonald's Wi-Fi without a VPN kind of an idea, and all that kind of stuff. They do also want you to have email filtering and protection, which kind of goes hand in hand with the security awareness. The security awareness is where you're doing trainings and sending fake phishing on purpose to make sure that they're not clicking the links. And then on top of that, you can create almost like an antivirus solution for your email, where you're putting an application out there and you're configuring it so every email that's coming in is getting scanned, and it will look for malicious things, and it can get about 90% of the bad stuff before it even gets to your inbox. Stuff is always going to get through no matter what, which is why you want to pair it. You want to have email filtering and security awareness training. Those two things together is the big ticket there.
Interesting.
Yep.
Can you do that at home, or does Gmail do that? I don't know.
They may offer, I'm not sure exactly again, I'm more focused
Yeah.
on the business for sort of personal size. I'm not sure what you would pay for have like a advanced filtering on your accounts
Interesting.
and things, but usually you can pay someone like M365, you pay for the extra, Defender licenses
Yep.
for email filtering, right? And once you buy that license,
Yep.
you know that your stuff's being filtered. On the G Suite side, I'm not sure. I'm
Yeah,
sure
me
there's
either.
some way to do it. I'm sure they're offering a solution that'll do filtering for
But
you.
we know Microsoft, so
Stuff.
if you need help with that,
Yeah.
we can help you with that. Okay, keep going.
And then the last one that they're starting to do, this is more nuanced, again, depending on your industry. So if you're in a kind of a high security industry, maybe, but they want to do an assessment of third-party access and supply chain risk. So your vendors. So if you're a business, you may got like, say, HVAC guys coming in, you got your DS tech coming in to do your computers, you got all kinds of different people coming in and out of your business. A lot of insurance companies want to make sure that those people aren't just coming in and all of a sudden accessing secure areas or things like that. So they want to maybe just make sure that your vendors have a vendor log, a sign-in log, maybe they might require in and out, various things like that. It just all depends on your specific business and use case. So obviously reach out to us and we can help you with that. And they'll usually give you some directions on what they're looking for in the insurance too. But typically they're just looking at what kind of stuff's installed on your network and are you doing this in a secured way, right? You have the guys coming in that need to maybe adjust thermostats, but are you giving them like a domain administrator account to use? It's like that's way more privileges than they need to do their job. And so they might look at various accounts that these third parties have within your system and making sure that they're following that kind of privileged access management that your regular employees are doing, but they're doing it with your vendors to make sure you're not just giving them keys to the
I
kingdom.
didn't think of that. So if they have like a server room or something, for
exactly,
example, or if like they have smart devices, maybe you have to have those set up properly.
On their own, usually subnets configured in a certain way to be separated from your data, and you don't want them accessing the data if they'd have no reason to do so.
Or to be on your main network.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
They'll assess that. Again, that's a newer one that's coming out now. You might not see that on all of them, but it is one that is coming out now, and it's going to be, they're treating your third party or your vendors similar to your own internal staff and just making sure their permissions, their privileges are set up properly and they're not giving them too much access that they don't need. So, so I guess a final recap tips is, I know we went through a lot of stuff here. Don't wait till the renewal time comes where you're like, well, my insurance is what, April, so it's like, oh, insurance is due in May. Let's hurry up and get this done right now. It might be kind of, hairy to get it done that quick. So I would assess it now, reach out to us now. Things are always changing. It doesn't hurt. Say you're 3 or 4 months out from your renewal on your insurance company, reach out to them and be like, hey, are your cyber insurance requirements the same this year, or are there any new things we should be concerned about with, and ask them prior to. And then once you get that information, reach out to us and then we can help you through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want this in the form of a checklist, let me know.
Yep.
I'll get you one.
So yeah, checklist for sure. Reach out to DS Tech or your MSP for consulting, and good to go there. So that's the insurance got tired. The short end of it is they got tired of paying out all the stuff. So now they're like, we want you to meet some of these requirements in order to be secure. It's just the same as if you're a poor driver, unfortunately, you're going to have higher driving record or costs just because of that. Or if you get in a bunch of accidents, guess what? You're going to have a higher premium, or you might not be. It's kind of the same thing with the computer.
You're a high risk.
Yep.
So you got to pay more, right?
Yep.
So
you choose not to have MFA everywhere, but you're going to probably pay triple for your premium.
Oh my gosh.
Or
you won't get coverage at all.
Yeah, that's MFA. That's probably the case now. I don't even think you get coverage with MFA, but
the list has gotten longer.
Yes,
since the first time we went on it.
Yeah, I think it was like 4 bullet points. Now they're up to 8, and there'll be 12 next. It just But.
Yeah, so if you need help, definitely reach out. Type help or type checklist if you want that. And stay safe. Make it a great day. We'll see you next time.